Okay, we're going to talk about linear equations and the different forms that you can write it in. First, you need to know standard form. That's when you have x and y on the same side of the equals before the equal sign, and your constant is after the equals. Slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. You're used to using this because from this you can see your slope and you can see your y-intercept directly in the equation. Point slope is helpful because you get at one point, it's y minus a y value equals your slope times x minus an x value. So you can also see your slope in that equation. So we're going to practice writing. Now, if you get a standard form equation, the best thing to do is to rearrange it to y equals mx plus b. Okay, it doesn't matter what you have. And then if you have the slope, you can check your slope. And if you have a point, you can check it in the table. For example, 2, they give you the y-intercept, so that would be like the point 0, -2. And then you have the point -3, -7. So once you rearrange your standard form, which are probably going to be in your answer choices, you can check these 2 points in the table. So now we're going to look at writing slope-intercept form for both examples. So if they give you a slope, that's your m, and they give you a point, here's what you can do. What I would recommend is go ahead and using point slope form first, and then you can rearrange it to slope intercept form. So we're going to go ahead and plug in y minus our y value, which is 5, equals our slope, which is -1/2, times x minus, and now I'm going to plug in my x value, which is a -4. And because I have subtract a negative, that's really going to change to a +4. Because remember, if it's inside, it's opposite. So what's the opposite of a -4? A +4. So that would be like subtract 4 plus 4. Okay, slope-intercept form. So all we have to do is rearrange this equation. So it would be y equals -1/2 x. So I'm going to go ahead and put y equals -1/2 x. And then -1/2 times 4, I'm going to do that in my calculator, -1/2 times 4. And then if I move that 5 over, it's got to combine with this. But when I move that 5, it's got to change sign. So I would add 5 to a -2, and it's going to be +3. Now, if I wanted to check my work, I would type in -1/2 x plus 3, and I would go to my table. I already know it has the right slope. I want to see, does it have the point -4 or 5? And if I've rearranged correctly, it does. Okay, now, if they give you 2 points, all you need to do is know that you can type this in your calculator. So we're going to take these 2 points and we're going to make a table of values. I'm just going to make a table of values up here. So x, y, I've got 0, -2, and -3, -7. And you can go to stat enter and you can type in your table. Now for a line, you're going to stat right arrow, pick option 4. So stat right arrow, you're going to pick option 4 for linear. It should say ax plus b. A is really m, so that's like mx plus b. And so now you're going to arrow down to calculate. And I'm going to go ahead and write down my A. A equals, that would be 1.6 repeating, which is 1 2/3, which is really 5/3. And then your B is -2. And y equals 5/3 x minus 2. Now, once you get your equation, I would go to y equals, and I would type in 5/3 x minus 2. And again, I'm going to go to my table, and I'm going to check that both of my points are in here. So I'm going to go to 0, -2, check, and then -3, -7. And it does have both of my points. Point slope. So we already know our slope is 5/3 because we got it from our 2 points. So I know that that's my m. And now I'm just going to put one of my points in there. So I'm going to say y minus a y value. So I'm just going to use the first one. So that would be minus 2, or negative 2. So y minus a negative 2 is equal to my slope of 5/3, parentheses x minus, and now I'm going to put in my x value of 0. And that would be, oh, I need to change this because plus minus a negative is going to become addition. So there you go. One thing you need to remember, exponential functions need 3 points, but lines only need 2 points, and you're going to pick option 4 to make a line. So just make you a table and then stat enter. Okay, write the following points. Again, we are going to use our calculator. We're going to go to stat, enter, and we're going to type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 13, 17, 21, 25. Stat over option 4. And I'm going to write my A 4 and my B is 5. So my equation is y equals 4x plus 5. And if you want to double check, you can type in 4x plus 5 and go to your table. 1, 9, 2, 13, 3, 17, 4, 21, and 5, 25. So it does work. I'm going to clear my calculator. And now for a graph, you can do the exact same thing, except you want to pick out 2 good points. So I'm seeing some points here. There's 3 of them right there. I'm going to make me a little tiny table over to the side. So this would be negative 3, negative 1, 0, negative 3, and 3, negative 5. Now again, I only needed 2 points. I got 3. As long as I have 2, I'm good. So I'm going to type these in. And then negative 1, negative 3, negative 5. Stat over option 4 for a line. And I'm going to write my A and B. A equals, that would be a negative 2/3. And that does match my line slants down, so my slope has to be negative. And then B is equal to a negative 3, and I can see very clearly it does cross the y-axis at negative 3, so my equation is y equals negative 2/3 x minus 3. There's my equation. All right, a verbal description. So you want to look for an initial value. Remember, just like from exponentials, that's your y-intercept. And you're looking for something per something, like miles per hour, feet per second, or you're looking for the words rate. Okay? Rate. That's your slope. So I'm going to read my question. A 2-foot tall tree is planted in the spring. If the tree grows at a rate of 5 feet per year, write an equation to represent its height, f of t, after each year. Okay, so I see something. I see the word rate, which is telling me slope. Now I just need to figure out what my slope is. Oh, 5 feet per year. So they're telling you that your slope is 5. And if it's growing, it's got to be a positive 5. All right, so now I'm looking for, do I know what it started at? Do I know its initial value? Yes, it started at 2 foot tall. So that's your initial height. That's your y-intercept. So your B is 2, and it's a positive 2 because 2 feet is positive. So if I put that together and y equals mx plus b, it's going to be y equals 5x plus 2. Okay, now let's look at solving equations. If you're going to solve equations, it's easier if you use your calculator. You can certainly work these out by hand, but I like to use my calculator. So I'm going to clear my memory. Here's how you do this. You're going to draw a line right down the middle at your equals sign, and you're going to use your y equals. And everything before the equal sign is going to get typed into y1. 1/3 x plus 3. Everything after the equal sign, you're going to type in y2. So 6x plus 9. And then you're going to solve using y equals. So you're going to graph it. You've got to make sure that your window is adjusted. You want to see both equations in your calculator. So I believe I do have both equations. So I'm going to hit second trace 5, enter, enter, enter. Enter 3 times. Okay? If you get an error, that means you need to adjust your window. You have to see both lines cross for an intersection point, and then it's going to tell you on your calculator, intersection point. Well, you're looking for your x value. My x value is a negative 9. And when both x values is equal to -9. If I were to plug that in, both sides would have a value of 0. That's what it's telling me. And that's how you solve equations using your calculator. And now you're going to look at linear inequalities. So flip to the next page in your booklet, and we will look at linear inequalities.